Hi, my name is Ashweein. Kami asal Kuching, Sarawak, and I am a stand-up comedian as well as a community builder, serial entrepreneur, and artist. To give a bit of context, my education is actually towards engineering. So my first degree that I got was a degree in mechanical materials and manufacturing. So of course my first few jobs was related to engineering. But after a couple of years of working in the engineering sector, I decided to move into the business side of things and then slowly to menceburi bidang arts, which is related more to stand-up comedy. So stand-up comedy is actually a very evolved or very matured version of public speaking. And we all have gone through public speaking lah at some point of our life, especially time sekolah. We ada belajar pasal public speaking sikit, to work on your intonation, to work on your pronunciation, your pacing in how you speak, you know. And when we are doing stand-up comedy tu nya macam they have a story that you are telling, but kita pun pacingnya perlu betul. Kita pun punchline has to hit at the right time. And you have to play with the audience, you have to play with their laughter, you have to play with their emotions and all that a little bit. So to me, to reach that level of being able to perform or being able to successfully do a stand-up comedy set, it basically needs a lot of practice in terms of public speaking, but it doesn't need a lot of formal practice. So it basically is like how you talk to your friends, how you discuss and you tell some jokes among your peers and stuff like that. And this is over your lifetime. And this is how you actually, in a lifelong kind of perspective, you're slowly learning how to better your craft and becoming very good in terms of stand-up comedy lah. Kami tu memang suka dengan stand-up comedy, even from those days where we used to have Russell Peters, Chris Rock, you know, all these American and Canadian stand-up comedians lah. They slowly started to create a lot of very strong following when it went towards the Asia region. So we started having people like Harith Iskandar, Dr. Jason Leong, and Kavin J, you know. So we have like a few of these stand-up comedians where I was very inspired by what they do. So around 2014, 2015, I used to actually go and attend a lot of open mics in KL. And I also did open for one or two comedians as well, where I did my own bit. But to be very frank with you, it wasn't a very big hit lah. Sebab kami pun not very experienced at that time, and a lot of my comedy, a lot of my humor is very localized, especially in a Sarawakian context. So when I was performing it in KL, it didn't hit so much lah. But when I came back to Kuching, I think around 2016, 2017, I met a few people who had the similar interest. Yang kami orang tu memang suka pola lawak and we love stand-up comedy, so we practice with each other how we want to do the pacing, how we want to better perfect our craft lah, you know. And then in the process of that, what we did is we started to actually set up a stand-up comedy group called Sara Lawak. So Sara Lawak stands for Orang Sarawak yang Lawak lah, you know. So while doing that, around 2017, 2018, we used to throw very frequent events, like at least once every 2 to 3 months. And most of the time, the tickets were always sold out because we realized that, okay, we have a very nice blend of humor and our crew had multi-racial and multilingual people. So, macam very exciting lah. We collaborated a few times with What About Kuching as well when it was active pre-pandemic. And yeah, so that I would say that I've probably been in the stand-up comedy line for about 3 to 4 years. Okay, so positive impact of stand-up comedy. We live in a very stressful and a very, interesting time lah, especially during the pandemic kan. Even pre-pandemic also, we had a lot of world issues, social issues, racial issues, you know, religious issues and stuff like that. And sometimes I just feel that like we have to always see the light side of things. I always look at life as a bit of a joke, so that like the more you can make fun and poke fun at it, the more you are actually comfortable and ready to accept things as they are, you know. A lot of times when we are talking about stereotypes or we talk about very sensitive topics, that's the one that makes the audience laugh the most. And the main reason why they laugh the most is because it's so true, you know. I'm not creating stories and talking about something that doesn't exist. We're talking about the actual things. I'm just putting it in a slightly more funny context. I make some funny comparisons and then make you actually understand that, like, hey, you know, we can laugh about life a little bit. We don't have to take everything too seriously. So I feel that like stand-up comedy, on top of building up my speaking skills and my presentation skills, definitely made me handle life stresses a lot better lah. You tend to look at things a little bit more positively, although like, you know, seeing the very funny side of things sometimes makes you a little bit of a skeptic, you know, you tend to become very skeptical on things. You just shouldn't let that skepticism eat into your passion. You know, use the passion to create the skepticism, make a funny sketch and a skit out of it, and then you become a pretty good comedian and you become very, how to say, very convincing as well, because what you're talking about is true. So for me, the most exciting moment was being recognized actually by the state government and also by What About Kuching to perform stand-up comedy during Rainforest World Music Festival. It wasn't on the main stage, obviously, because the whole music festival was going on inside Cultural Village. Our event was a little bit outside, on the fringe side of things. But while doing that, although not a lot of people came, it was a very organic crowd that came and saw my performances. And after that, I got a lot of jobs from STB, Tourism Board. I got some jobs from some corporate clients who actually liked looking at some of my jokes there. And they started to actually, you know, engage me to come and professionally do stand-up comedy for their corporate events and stuff like that. So that was very inspiring lah, because it helped me sort of like fit the gap between like doing it for fun and potentially making a living out of it. I'm not exactly making a living out of it full-time right now. I still do this quite a bit on the part-time because I have other things to do as well. But at the same time, it just makes me feel that, hey, I can be a little bit more serious about this. So that was quite exciting lah. That was quite interesting. Inspiracy is hidup lah, basically, life in general, you know. Everything that we go through in life, especially for me, because like since I run a lot of companies and I do a lot of things outside of the stand-up comedy field, I happen to come across a lot of different kind of situations, different kind of people, different kind of experiences and stuff like that. So, you know, it after a while, it got me to realize that like I take some time to actually go through what I went through in my life daily to see that like, hey, if these moments happened and if I can like make it a little funny, tell it in a story format and come up with a nice script for it, this will make actually very good content for my stand-up comedy. So I have this thing on my phone where like I just take down notes every now and then. If I come across something funny, a funny punchline, a funny one-liner, or a funny situation where when I ceritakan it, either I shorten it a little bit to make it nice, punchy and impactful lah, you know, and things like that, yeah. I would say, of course, language, you know, the good understanding of the language would be a very good criteria. But in my case, I do a lot of English stand-up comedy, but I do add in a lot of Bahasa Sarawak, a lot of like Tamil, sometimes even Mandarin inside as well, because that is depending on the kind of crowd that you want to go with. But other than that, you have to be very, very peka lah, very, very alert, you know, very aware. You have to be very aware of the current situation, because comedians who are not relevant, who do not talk about the recent things or the recent events or recent situations, very soon you will not really have a footing for stand-up comedy. Because stand-up comedy, you have to talk about new things. You have to talk about what's happening in the scene right now. You have to talk about, even if it's not new, but if it's relevant in accordance to the crowd and stuff like that, research and a lot of like understanding your crowd is very important. So I feel that like you need to have a very, how to say, like very inquisitive lah, very ingin tahu punya perangai, you know. You selalu ingin tahu about what's new, what's happening, what are the jokes, what is okay, what is not okay, what is allowed, what is not allowed, you know, what is borderline, borderline snowflake jokes or anything like that. You have to be very careful, with jokes these days as well. So these are quite important things to consider lah. Yeah. Okey, nasihat kami kepada para penonton ialah you must always be very tak berputus asa lah. You have to really be very resilient through this industry, because you have to understand that like stand-up comedy is not easy. A lot of people don't find me funny actually, and a lot of people may find my kind of humor not to their taste. And you have to be very okay with it. You know, it's almost the same as music and acting, but with music and acting, like generally a lot of people already like it. Stand-up comedy, especially in the local setting, it's not something very common or usual for all lapisan masyarakat. You know, there are some lapisan masyarakat that feels that like sometimes just having a guy speaking on the mic in front with the same tone throughout seems very boring. Who's going to pay like 30 ringgit, 40 ringgit to go watch him, you know, apparently tell some jokes and stuff like that. But some different people, they actually like that. You know, they like the concept of coming, sitting together with a couple of friends and have this guy talk about his life in a very funny way, you know. So you have to be very resilient, you have to be very ready to accept criticism, but at the same time also like you have to be confident lah, you know. Si boleh malu-malu kucing lah, orang kucing selalu malu-malu kucing, you know. Si boleh malu-malu, you have to be very ready to come and try out. So back to what I was saying earlier also, being resilient is one thing, being confident, and also you have to be hardworking.